10 years from now, when we read this list, you will see that most of the players today will be gone, except for Countrywide. Yes, Mozilla saw that Countrywide was making some risk launch, but what he couldn't see was that this launch could make his company every bit as vulnerable as the competitors. He despairing. If you are a true believer, you can ignore things you shouldn't ignore, says one former countrywide executive. That was Angelo Musillo's problem. Another puts it a little differently. He's a great salesman, and great salesmen are often the guys who get sold. Mozilla had long planned to retire from Countrywide at the end of 2006. He was approaching 70 years old, and he had been in the mortgage business in one way or another for over 50 years. Although we still sell the deal of Zium, he was no longer involved in the day-to-day realities of running the business. Thanks in part to his undisclosed health problems, his trusted lieutenants, with whom he'd built the company, were taking charge, starting with Stan Kurland, who was his designated successor. A transition had been set in motion. But in 2005, Mozilla began to feel better. As he regained his health, he became less sure he wanted to leave the company. He often called it his baby. Another executive recalled a conversation he had with Kurland around him. You realize I run this company, Kurland said to this person. Angelo doesn't know any of the details. A few weeks later, this same executive was with Mozilla, who said abruptly, Stan is interested in his the ending reports, referring to the ways in which Countrywide headed its interested rate risk. Although those in the daily age, he really doesn't want to run this company. Executives at Countrywide noticed another change. Two decisions had always come from Angelo and Stan. Now they come from Angelo, Stan, and Dave Samble. At the same time, Samble and Kurland were increasingly disagreeing about key aspects of Countrywide's strategy, with the Fed tightening interest rates. Kurland, fearing its effect on the housing market, wanted to pull in the horns a little, say several firm executives. Sambles wanted to keep winning for growth, and more Mozilla was siding with Sample. Thus in the Kurland camp felt increasingly marginalized. 2005 was thought. Say one of them. You were always trying to say no. One former executive recalls hearing Kurland's voice recited in agree coming from his office during an apparent argument with Sambo. The culture, which had been thought to begin with, become a culture of intimidations, says another executive. A turning point for these executives came when Saul Drew Wissinger, the 6'5" former San Diego Chargers offensive lineman, who served as Sample's number 2, standing over John M.C. Murray, Countrywide Chiefs risk officer, browbeating him. Also, it appeared to this person Your chief risk guy should be the most respected person in the organizations. Another former executive says, regarding the incidents. In the fall of 2005, Countrywide board has get Kurland for evidence on how he envisioned dividing responsibilities with Mozilla once he becomes CEO. What ensued became a topic of much discussions and speculation in countrywide top ranks. As other former executives recount the story, Kurland was furious. He didn't want any division. Either he was going to be CEO or he wasn't. He didn't want the title if he wasn't going to truly be in charge, especially given that Mozilla could be a lost cannon and that symbol. In his view, neither reining in. Kurland sent Mozilla an emails that become infamous in Countrywide upper ranks, outlining his expectations for the role Mozilla would have when he stepped down. Essentially, the Kurland outlined a structure in which he would be running the company and Mozilla would assume the classic role of the ex-founder, non-executive chairman of the board, at honorific with no power. Kurland, said one person, was even reluctant to have Mozilla continue as the company's spokesperson on CNBC. The memo led to a bitter and childish feud between the two men, one that consumed ignorated amounts of everyone's energy. Mozilla was deeply offended and the history was when Kurland tried to apologize, Mozilla refused to accept it. There is no way I deserved this after a 30 years relationship, Kurland told one person.